What's up guys, it's Corey, and today I'll show you how I completed this week's Hall of Illusion solo dungeon in Throne and Liberty. To get through this week's dungeon, I actually used multiple builds, including both my Crusader and Gladiator. I'll showcase those builds at the end of the bosses, and links in the description, as always, with timestamps. Now, I'd like to preface this by saying, again, don't feel like you need to run a super high tier, because even at the super high tiers, the items that you are trying to get still have a really low chance of dropping. There's no shame in dropping the tier down to 3 or even like 2 or even 1 to just get it done, okay? Now, right off the bat, when we go through the painting, you're going to be ambushed by these angry dwarves. And the mech this week is going to make it so they're going to constantly drop healing totems, which is also similar to something we've seen in the Dimensional Trials. So pretty straightforward. You just need to get the dwarves outside of that healing aura, use pushes, pulls, whatever abilities you need to, or just kite them away from the totem poles. Once you complete the first phase of enemies, we're going to see a couple of new unique looking buffs we haven't seen in the past. They all offer a really unique buff, and they all do something really cool. The Curse of Decline is going to make it so the enemies actually do less damage to the player. The Chain Doll is really cool. It pulls all the enemies in. Really awesome for like AoE builds. Use that to your advantage. Then we have the Explosive Ignition. Essentially, you can attack these and it'll make a bomb attacking them. I didn't really like this one, but maybe you can find some use for it. Now, my personal favorite that I saved for last is no other than the Zone of Pain. I think this is personally the best buff you can get. If you see this one, I'd highly recommend it. You can see here, it easily drops down the totems, and it gives you a constant AoE damage. After clearing enough enemies, the commander will come out, and you need to be sure to kill this enemy, and keep an eye on him as he'll use a Wrath attack, and if you don't block it, it's really going to mess you up, and you will get overwhelmed. I found success by pulling them all together, and that's why I liked my tank build. I tried pushing the enemies off the ledge. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Really disappointing. After you clear the room, you'll have time to switch builds, gear, heal up, whatever you need to do. Go ahead and hop into the painting, which will lead us to the first boss of this dungeon, which is LionHead. We'll start this fight out like normal, seeing the usual 3 buffs, and go ahead and grab either stamina, HP, or movement speed, whatever suits your build best. Be mindful of these cracks in the ground, as we're going to take a little bit of damage from them, and they also reduce our movement speed, which makes it really hard to perform the mech. When LionHead teleports, be prepared to block, and this is when the mech starts. If you don't hit the block, it makes it hard to follow up and jump over the stomp that he follows up with. Now, this is when the main mech starts. You're going to see these 3 totems light up, and these 3 NPCs that have matching symbols over their head. What you need to do is get these NPCs to the matching totem. Now, the first time I ran this, I didn't know what I was doing, so I had no idea how to get them over, but you can see there, by running through the cracks in the ground, you can see my movement speed is reduced. For each player that doesn't make it to their assigned totem, you're going to take extra damage. So do your best to avoid those holes in the ground and his abilities while getting the NPCs to their totems. If you fail to get all 3 of them, you'll take more damage from his ability. So the less NPCs you get to their totem, the more damage you're going to take. Now, the proper way to do this mech is as follows. When you see him teleport, prepare to block. Then you're going to jump over his stomp, and you're going to block again. Then you can immediately start shepherding the NPCs to their proper totem. If you find it's hard to get over to the player, use a push or a pull ability, like your chain or a push, anything that makes it easier to get them quicker, as you only have a limited amount of time to get them to their totems. Once you successfully get all 3 NPCs to the totem, it will lock him in place, allowing you to get a free damage phase instead. Practice this mech a couple of times, you'll get the block rhythm down, and you'll start being able to get those NPCs to their totem very quickly, and it'll become much easier, and then you'll be able to push a much higher tier of the difficulty. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And here's the build I used to do that. Again, I found my tank build worked really well for this because of the ability to push and pull the NPCs. So use what works best for you. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I found tanking worked really well since I could push and pull the enemies, and the damage mitigation was just really nice. I typically stick to my Gladiator build, but this happened to work really well. After completing LionHead, you'll get to the next room where you're going to see a lever. Simply pull the lever to start this room. It's really straightforward. You just need to stay on the green squares to avoid damage. If you hit red, you're going to take damage, and you don't even have to hop. You can just run through diagonally like so. Keep in mind there is one of the fallen papers here, so don't miss that. And really, it's pretty straightforward. You just need to do your best to recognize the patterns and stay on the green. If you're taking too much damage, maybe try putting on more HP, use HP pots if you have to. But I ran this at about tier 3, and it really was not too difficult. But if you have any questions, just leave me a comment, and I'll do my best to answer them. So follow through those. It really doesn't get too difficult until the very end, but just try to recognize the patterns and stay on the green accordingly, and you'll get through no problem. Jump through the painting, and this will take you to the last room of the dungeon and the final boss Umbrakan. This is the last boss of the dungeon, so now's a great time to change builds or take a break if you need to. We'll start this fight like normal with our stamina, HP, and movement speed buffs. However, I would highly recommend you actually start this fight grabbing stamina because of his mech. This fight is very straightforward. Every time we block or roll one of his attacks, we are going to stack a debuff on him called Dry Wound. Once this gets to about 6 or 7, you'll get a free DPS phase. However, if you do not hit your blocks or rolls, you will be one-shot by him. This fight is very straightforward, and that's really all there is to it, aside from a simple hop jump when he does his stomp, like you see in many of the other boss mechanics. So, if you do not hit your blocks or rolls, he will eventually one-shot the player. So ideally, this is why it's nice to grab that stamina buff, is it'll allow you to roll and block much easier. After hitting enough of your blocks and rolls, that debuff will hit about 7, and he's going to give you a free damage phase where he'll run over to that little plant and try to heal. Go ahead and damage during this phase, however, keep in mind, right after, he's going to do that stomp in the center that you need to hump over. He'll immediately follow it by 3 attacks that can only be rolled. This is where it gets kind of tricky. I did not have the stamina or ability to roll between all 3. I don't believe you can. Maybe there is a way to. However, the way to get around this is by skipping the second roll. Roll the first, skip the second, roll the third. That way you do not have 2 in a row, and this allowed me to not get one shot by the mechanic. And that was really the only tricky part of this fight. Hit all of your blocks and rolls. Be sure to be careful after the damage phase to skip that second roll dodge, and you should clear this fight no problem. As promised, here's my Gladiator build as well. Hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions at all, just drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Hope you guys are enjoying Throne and Liberty. I'll definitely be putting up more guides going out forward for PvP, Nebula Island, and all the rest of the solo dungeons as well. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Catch you in the next one.